Hello and welcome to the David Icke Videocast. Well, I've been warning about it for decades that the time was coming when the most basic freedom of speech would be deleted or attempted to be deleted if we don't get our backsides in gear and see what's going on. And this week has seen another series of blows against that basic human freedom on which all other freedoms depend: freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of opinion. And it's intertwined in this latest systematic, childlike hysteria against Russia in the wake of the poisoning by a nerve agent of a former Russian spy, actually a double agent. He was spying for Britain, and his daughter. And where we are was actually summed up in a phrase used by the British Prime Minister, Theresa May, when she was announcing sanctions against Russia for being responsible for what happened to the former spy, while producing no provable evidence that what she claimed was true. Among these sanctions, by the way, was that the royal family won't be visiting the World Cup in Russia. I'm sure the Russians are absolutely distraught and beside themselves and have taken to their beds. But this phrase was very, very telling. She said that there was no alternative to the conclusion that Russia was responsible. And that's what this destruction of freedom of speech is all about. Deleting any alternatives to the official narrative. And that was captured in that one ridiculous phrase by Theresa May, because of course there are many other conclusions that can be considered in relation to what happened to the spy. And it shows the depth that we have reached now when the opposition leader, Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn, replying to Theresa May, had the absolute audacity to ask for evidence, which anyone with half a brain cell on active duty would be asking for. But what happened when Corbyn asked for the obvious evidence? He was jeered. And not only jeered by the opposition parties, jeered by some in his own party, who were just as pathetic. And so this is where we are. In the post-fact, post-evidence society, in which evidence doesn't matter, facts don't matter, just repeating an official narrative to bring about a particular end is all that matters. Keep repeating the narrative. It's what the Nazis based their propaganda on. Keep repeating a lie and eventually people will believe it. Now, where freedom of speech comes in is not only that people are shouted down if they question the official narrative and ask for evidence, but also in demands in the wake of this nerve gas attack or nerve agent attack from, among others, Labour Party MPs like Chris Bryant. The fact that he's an MP is terrifying, frankly. Calling for the Russia Today RT channel to be banned in Britain. And the claim is that it's bias. And the Shadow Chancellor of the Labour Party, a guy called MacDonald, he advised Labour MPs not to go on to RT because it was biased. And he said those words on the BBC, one of the most institutionally biased news organisations on planet Earth, masquerading as standing up for freedom and truth. Of course RT is biased towards Russia when it's funded by the Russian government. Of course it's going to take the Russian angle. Of course you're not going to expect it to be exposing Putin and things that the Russian government doesn't want exposed. You watch it with that knowledge and you take from it what feels right in the knowledge of the background. But hold on. The BBC takes the British angle. The American media takes the American angle. And you watch them in that knowledge. And because you have intelligence, you filter what they say with that background. In terms of the mainstream media in general, you question everything. In fact, that's the whole point about RT and why they really want it banned. RT has a motto, question more. My motto is question everything. So for me, RT is not really alternative media, it's mainstream light. That's why they've never asked me on. I'm too far down the road for them. And you look at it, however, and you see that RT does ask questions of situations and world events that the mainstream media is not asking. It has people on that the mainstream media would never have on, giving views the mainstream media would never allow people to hear. And on that basis, while you filter it with its funding background, RT has made a major contribution to balancing out, ironically, the lies and bias of the Western mainstream. And that is the problem. Because the reason they're saying it must be banned is because RT, in the wake of this attack on the former Russian agent, is basically saying, where's the evidence? You keep telling us the Russians did it and Putin did it, but where's the evidence? Now that is what any journalist worth the name would be asking. But when you want people to believe there is no alternative to the conclusion that, you don't want people having access to this questioning. And that's what it's really all about. And this is the point when it comes to what people say. Is it true? You never hear that question, do you? He's a conspiracy theorist, what he's saying. Yes, but is what he's saying actually true? As so many so-called conspiracies have proved to be true with the passage of time. Is it true? When sources of information you don't like or political opinions you don't like are expressed, why not ask the question, is what is being said here true? Never mind, I don't like the person saying it, is it true? But that is long gone. Now it's, if I don't like you, I don't care what you say, I'm going to oppose what you say, I'm going to call you a bigot, I'm going to say you're wrong, or a Nazi, or a propagandist. Even though, if you did the research, you'd find it was true. So this is where we've got. British Ofcom, Britain's Ofcom, that's the government body that regulates the media and says who can broadcast and who can't. Quite a powerful thing to have when you're a government. Britain's Ofcom says Russia's RT could lose license over spy case. Don't question. Question more. Don't question at all. What are you doing? Britain's media regulator Ofcom has declared its potential intention to revoke the licence of Russia's RT television if London officially blames Moscow for the death of a former Russian agent, which it is doing, of course, without any provable evidence. Ofcom said on Tuesday that it had informed the holders of RT's UK broadcasting licences that it could lose the broadcasting licence should Britain determine Russia played a role in poisoning the Russian agent and his daughter in the city of Salisbury earlier this month. Now, of course, the agenda, the systematic agenda of demonising Russia, was always going to blame Russia for this. Whatever, evidence doesn't matter. We're going to blame Russia. Why? Because we have a global campaign to demonise Russia. As I said in a meme this week, President Vladimir Putin, he must be a bloody genius because he's responsible for everything. He must never sleep. The ban on RT's operation in the United Kingdom could render Ofcom as a media body which hardly tolerates narratives opposed to those of the British government. That's why it's there. The organisation has a history of acting for the benefit of the British government in disputes with other countries. The body revoked the licences of Press TV after the Tehran-based English language outlet aired confessions by a British Iranian citizen who spied for Western intelligence agencies. Oh, we can't have that. Can't have people telling the truth. So this is where we are. And this week has provided yet again an extraordinary number of examples of how free speech is disappearing down the plug hole. Of course, I had my own experience in Leicester when an event was cancelled that was going fine by the intervention of Leicestershire Police and Leicester City Council. And the Leicestershire Police sent a guy who claimed to be a might be a county as well, but counter-terrorism officer to tell the venue a lot of nonsense about what I say. They'd never checked. And what my events are like and who goes to them, they'd never checked. And the fact that there had been not a single person protest at any event worldwide since I started my World Speaking Tour 2 years ago. And Leicestershire Police won't even take responsibility for that. They're saying, oh no, we didn't intimidate the venue. We just told them there'd be lots of problems and their venue's reputation will be destroyed. And it could be a danger to their staff and it could be a danger to the audience. So we didn't intimidate them. Oh no, they made the choice. Oh, come on. If you're gonna use the police to censor freedom of speech, which the police should be protecting, then at least take bloody responsibility for it. Anyway, this week, this first one, ladies and gentlemen of the world, is an absolute classic of where we are. For those outside of Britain, Millwall Football Club is in the East End of London and has a reputation for being very tough. And over the years, that reputation is justified. But this is where Millwall Football Club is now. Here's the headline. Millwall Football Club caves in to transgender activists and cancels feminists' meeting after threats. Millwall, home ground, the Den, known around the world as one of England's fiercest clubs, has cancelled a feminist meeting after reportedly getting spooked by transgender activists. Ah, bless them. The South London side is said to have given in to a campaign attempting to silence people with a differing view on transgenderism. A group of feminists hired a conference room at the club's stadium, the Den, to discuss how concerns raised by women are being shut down through threats, harassment, and accusations of transphobia, again, destroying their freedom of speech. The meeting's organizer, Venice Allen, said that the gathering was organized to express disagreement with potential changes in law that could allow people born as males to identify as women, something the group might threaten women's rights. And Venice Allen said, I got a call from the club saying they'd never seen anything like it, constant phone calls, emails and tweets. And the club said we were pulled in to a drama that we really didn't feel we should be part of. No, Millwall Football Club, you were pulled into a choice between defending freedom of speech or letting it be blocked and stopped. And you know who is responsible for the disappearance of freedom of speech? No, not the people who are calling for meetings to be banned, people to be silenced. They can only call for it. The reason that freedom of speech is being deleted is the gutless people who cave in like this, cave in like venues where I've been due to speak, because it's less hassle to do so than to have some backbone and say, no, freedom of speech is sacrosanct. I said Millwall, by the way, was in the East End of London. It's in another part of London, not terribly far away. Then we've had this week. Free speech or hate speech. Right-wing activists banned from Britain. Now, you'll never find anyone more not right-wing, not far right than me, or anyone, by the way, more not far left, because these are all ludicrous political labels. So I'm not in any way supporting this person or that person or another person. What I'm saying is everyone should have the right to freedom of speech. Otherwise, there is no freedom of speech, just the freedom to conform. And what has happened here is these so-called, in this article, right-wing activists have been banned from entering the UK and held in detention centres, sparking a free speech debate on the streets of London. Members of Generation Identity, or GI, and Antifa, this so-called far left, actually just as fascistic as those they claim to oppose. They clashed on Sunday, and border police held high-profile members of GI just months after the group opened its UK wing, and wouldn't allow them into the country. And, you know, people say you shouldn't be allowed to say this because it's not very nice. You shouldn't be allowed to say this because I don't agree with it. When people are inciting violence and inciting hatred, there are laws against that when they do it. And if they use their free speech to call for the incitement of violence and the incitement of hatred, genuine hatred, not made up hatred, where anything's hate these days, then there are laws to deal with that, and those laws should deal with that. But once you start censoring speech and opinion at the point of delivery or before the point of delivery by banning any public stage, what you are doing is handing the power to decide what people hear and don't hear to an authority. And that is fascistic. And of course, once the authority gets that power, it will start to expand and expand, as we are seeing its interpretation of incitement to the point where it is deleting the free speech and opinion of more and more people until we reach the point, and we are not far from it, where the whole world will have a communication system based on Theresa May's "there is no alternative" conclusion. And anyone that is calling for people to be denied the right to an opinion and freedom to express it is pushing the world down that road, and they should not, like the Leicestershire police, in my case, deny responsibility. Then we come to the mainstream media, and I'll come to a bit more in a minute. But here's another story. Police warn reporters not to report news until cops give them permission or face consequences. Are you awake, mainstream media, to what is planned for you while you stay silent? Story from Kentucky. Local media outlets are speaking out after they received emails from a state police spokesperson demanding that they wait for a press release from the police department before publishing stories about ongoing investigations, which implies that the outlets are prohibited from using a narrative that is different from the one chosen by police. There is no alternative to the conclusion that. And there is a theme here too in this whole freedom of speech deletion, and it is the involvement of ultra-Zionist hate groups who set out to demonize their targets so the public hate them. And here's an incredible story, really, but it's not in current situations. Arizona State University asks Palestinian academic to sign contract not to criticize Israel. What are you talking about? Sign a contract not to criticize a country or a government of a country? But this is where we are. Because Israel has a network throughout the West, further afield as well, I'm sure, but particularly in the West, of ultra-Zionist hate groups whose job is to silence anyone criticizing or exposing the behavior and policies and agendas of Israel by dubbing them anti-Semitic. Very simple. Someone saying something Israel doesn't like, anti-Semitic. And the mainstream media, they sit by. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yeah, we'll condemn them. They're anti-Semites. Pathetic. And all the time, the mainstream media's own freedom to express itself is being deleted, deleted, and deleted, and deleted. This is the story. Arizona State University is reported to have asked Palestinian academic Atem Bazian to sign a contract in which he pledges not to criticize Israel at an event organized by the Muslim Students Association next month. Chair of American Muslims for Palestine and lecturer at the University of California at Berkeley, Bazian said Arizona State University asked him to sign the university's speaker agreement, which speaker agreement includes this, which included a clause that prohibits criticizing Israel or engaging in the BDS boycott of Israel movement. Bazian refused to sign the agreement, saying agents loyal to Israel constitute a real obstacle to freedom of expression and academic freedom in American universities. Well, ain't that the truth? He added that asking him to sign an agreement which includes a clause that prevents criticism and boycott of Israel is to ignore the freedom of thought and academic autonomy. And, of course, that's disappearing. But, there is a common theme here. You see, when you look at the hate groups that are trying to silence me, they are ultra-Zionist hate groups. When you look at the owners of Google and YouTube and Facebook, etc., you find that they're owned by Zionists, or at least controlled by Zionists. And then these major corporations are using ultra-Zionist hate groups like the Anti-Defamation League in America and others around the world to advise them on what information and videos should be allowed on these channels and platforms and which should not. What you're looking at is this tiny, you can almost do it on two hands out of Silicon Valley. The number of people who ultimately are controlling the information you see, or the vast, vast majority of it, internet information anyway, through Google, YouTube, and Facebook. And they are employing ultra-Zionist hate groups. Another one is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is not about poverty at all, it's very rich. That takes vehemently the ultra-Zionist line. And it's being employed to decide through these corporations what you see and don't see. And then we have Al Jazeera, the Arab channel, which has done some great work exposing the influence of the Zionist lobby in Britain, where they expose through hidden cameras that someone working for the Israeli embassy in London was talking to members of parliament and calling for certain MPs, including one minister, to be taken down. Of course, all under the carpet. Oh, no, never heard that. And now they're doing the same with the Zionist lobby, massively, fundamentally influential in the United States. And here is an ultra-Zionist lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, demanding censorship of that Al Jazeera lobby film, Israel lobby film. Alan Dershowitz is calling for the government of Qatar to censor Al Jazeera's suppressed film exposing the US Israel lobby. In a letter Monday, he called for the channel to reshoot and re-edit the film before its release to add pro-Israel commentators. Oh, like the Zionist lobby is always adding anti-Israel commentators. And where is the mainstream media in all this? This is not racism I'm talking about, because the vast, overwhelming majority of Jewish people are not involved in this at all. Supporters of Zionism, the vast majority, are not involved in this at all. But where are the mainstream media looking at these basic facts and connections? Nowhere. where are they in terms of challenging this disappearance of free speech? Basically either nowhere or supporting it. Or they'd love to see RT gone, a lot of them would. They want to see the alternative media disappear because it's taken their audience. And we have in Britain the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail is all for freedom of speech. Yeah, its own. It's been exposing recently the efforts by a guy called Max Mosley, very rich bloke, former Formula One motor racing tycoon, for his efforts to censor the British media. And they've done pages and pages of it because it affects them. And you see, I believe in freedom of speech for everybody, even those I disagree with, because there wouldn't be freedom of speech otherwise, like I said earlier. And thus, I completely support the Daily Mail exposing and highlighting censorship of itself. But where are they when people like me are being blatantly censored, even with the bloody police involved now? Nowhere. Because they don't believe in freedom of speech. They believe in their own, which, for reasons I keep emphasizing, is not freedom of speech at all unless I have it and everyone else has it. And it's been another week, a desperate week again for freedom of speech. And all these things, all these excuses, any excuse will do. Political correctness and all the snowflake hysteria. Any excuse will do. But the common theme, we must stop people having an opinion that we don't agree with. And of course, we've also had Mike Pompeo move from the head of the CIA post to Secretary of State in the United States, which takes us on to another level of extremism in terms of targeting Russia and China and Iran. And we've had Gina Haspel, his deputy at the CIA, now becoming head of the CIA, another bloody extremist who's been connected to torture that will push the CIA in the same direction that Pompeo will take the State Department. And we need to start having some backbone and stop moaning and start standing up for it. Stop refusing to be intimidated. Stop refusing to be silenced by these people. And it's another lesson too in what is happening. A lesson which we've seen confirmed again and again and again at just how ludicrous and insane it was for significant parts of the so-called alternative media, not least in America, to support Trump for the presidency. Not that Clinton would be any better, but I'm talking about their man, Trump. He was going to change everything. Well, many of these alternative outlets, sources that supported Trump and said he was going to drain the swamp, are now really feeling the effects of the American authorities in all their different forms and corporations deleting their freedom of speech and dismantling their ability to operate. Where is Trump now for you? Oh yes, he wanted you to support him and he'll go on your show and be interviewed. And ain't great, because he had to get the people you communicate with and broadcast to vote for him to win. And the people around him knew that. But where is he now for you as your freedom of speech is destroyed? Nowhere. Because he was never going to be there. It was all a hoax. Come on, people. Let's get this sorted, because if we don't, and this certainly applies to the mainstream media. The famous words from someone in Nazi Germany will become real yet again. First, they came for the socialists, and I was not a socialist, so I did nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I was not a trade unionist, so I did nothing. Then they came for the Jews, and I was not a Jew, so I did nothing. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.